Welcome back, everyone, to Paradigm, where we dive deep into the minds of innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders that are basically shaping our world. And today we have a very, very special guest joining us. Is J.F. Gauthier, the founder and CEO of startup Genome. JF is actually a Silicon Valley-based serial entrepreneur with extensive experience in scaling companies, advising global governments, and most importantly, developing those innovation ecosystems and so many other things. So his company, Startup Genome, is known for its data-driven insights into what it actually takes, let's say, to make that startup ecosystem thrive. And having worked in over 160 governments and organizations in 55 countries, I'm extremely excited to have him on board today. Thank you so much, JF, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
How's Dubai treating you so far?
It's great. A lot of action, lots of great people, lots of great discussions, lots of energy. So
I can imagine.
It's really good.
That's what we're all about here. Now, tell me, are you jet lagged? You're waking up for the conversation. You're doing well.
Surviving 12-hour time zone difference, the worst.
Oh my God.
Sometimes you lose your mind and you're like, where's my mind? Where's my mind?
Right. And then you catch it. But tell me a little bit about your name. I mean, you have quite a particular name. I see it's very SEO friendly. What does JF stand for, if I could ask?
Jean-François.
All right, Jean-François.
Which is impossible to pronounce by Americans. So
all right.
Not a good name.
So you just got a shortcut, basically.
Yeah. When I moved to Toronto at the beginning years ago, and then later to the US, I'm like, okay, let's keep it simple, because otherwise it's going to take me 5 minutes to train people to say my name every time.
I can imagine. And it's a bit annoying, right, when people can't say your name correctly. You just tend to get a bit anxious about it.
Yeah, I really like when they say Jean Francois. That's really the nice one.
Can't believe it. All right, but Gauthier at the end, I mean, you could be a fashion designer as well. So anyways, to go back to the topic, today I'm extremely excited to just genuinely explore, the science behind building all these billion-dollar startups. And I think you're the perfect person to talk to about this. So guys, whether you're policymakers, whether you're entrepreneurs, or just simply someone fascinated by the dynamics of the startup success scene, I think this is the right guy for you. So thank you once again for coming over. So tell me, growing up, did you always kind of envision yourself as becoming, an entrepreneur, becoming a founder, entering the tech industry, or it hit you later?
Not at all. And one of my uncles was an entrepreneur. His son, one of my favorite cousins, always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was like, no. I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to be a researcher. I'm going to maybe go into politics.
Okay.
But entrepreneurs was like the last thing on my mind.
Okay, that's interesting. What sort of scientist? Which sector?
I didn't know when I was young, but
okay.
But politics was also something very, very interesting. So
all right.
With Startup Genome, when I started advising policies, that was very attracting to me.
All right. So I would say you're a very analytical person. Then you like to get your details straight. Okay, nice. Would you say you've had some sort of big influence, in your early adulthood? Someone that actually pushed you to enter the sphere?
Many people, but as you move to Silicon Valley, it hits you from every side, right? You see so many successful entrepreneurs and so many people who are starting things and have big ideas and don't have any fear of starting it. Everybody's building on the excitement of each other. And you go to the ice cream parlor and people say, I have a big idea, just working here temporarily, but then I'm going to conquer the world with my big idea.
All right.
And so it hits you, and then you're like, it's omnipresent in San Francisco.
I guess Silicon Valley has a very specific energy about it, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up in Silicon Valley, though?
So I was at Harvard Business School in the 1995, 1996.
Not bad. Okay.
And then and all my friends were talking about San Francisco, and one of my friends started working with Yahoo just pre-IPO, and Netscape had launched, and it was a huge buzz, and it was also seen as a city that was super fun.
Okay.
Where there was like hippies and crazy new cultures, and also great business to do, and bulging and exploding innovation. And so it looked like the place to be. And of course the climate is great too. So coming from Montreal, it was like, let's check it out.
It's just a bunch of geniuses under the sun at that point. Okay, cool. Now tell me, was there any particular moment or experience that in your early years, I guess at Harvard, kind of pushed you to have that interest in technology?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am. When you look at my type at the Kinsey studies, or Jung's archetypes, I'm an inventor.
Okay.
I'm a leader and inventor, and I'm always inventing. And
All right.
my wife always says, "Can we just buy something that's already made?" And I'm like, "No, I'll make something better." She's like, "Yeah, but it's going to take 3 months. I just want to buy it."
Your wife
And
is
so
one lucky
I'm
woman.
always
then.
constantly trying
Okay.
to invent new things. How can we do this better? I'll make this furniture like this. I'm going to do that.
So it's in all aspects of life that you're trying to invent.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And I read that you've also entered Harvard and done your MBA there, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that while doing your MBA, you've kind of shaped your leadership style, your decision making? Because these are, in my opinion, like the two most important things, right? When you want to open something up on your own. Would you say that this is where you've kind of matured and said, okay, after this MBA, I'm ready to kick this off?
It's it happened. It started happening at HBS, but not in the way you think. So being from a small region in the north of Quebec, you're very smart. You're always first in class, and you lead with authority. And then you arrive at Harvard Business School, and everybody's as smart, as driven.
Oh my God!
And you start that style completely fails. And so you start thinking, I need to look at emotions, I need to connect, I need to listen, I need to bridge.
Okay.
And like seeing other people who would convince my study group or my team to do something that I knew was wrong because I'd already done a business undergrad.
Okay.
And seeing that even I had the right solution, I could not convince the other ones. And the feedback was like, you're really arrogant. You're like telling us you're right. And so I started changing at HBS, but really because of that.
It's changing the style of the way that you manage people, the way you deal with people, the way that you react.
The way you lead,
The way you lead,
My style changed also when I started going to Burning Man and to festivals where we would do arts together in like 110 degrees weather.
I haven't done Burning Man yet. It's on the list though. It's on the list. That's a cool experience.
And then you go there and you cannot lead through authority. People are there to have fun.
Yeah.
So you need to really lead with, what does the group wants to do? What does this team wants to do? We're doing this together, and if we don't want to do it, then we're not doing it. So leading is really coalescing the energy and feeling people and bringing us into the direction that we want to go.
Okay.
And that really balances what we learn in management, where you say, okay, I'm managing, I have authority, I have the position, they need to do what I say.
Right.
And having this other experience of leadership that's completely different, when everybody can leave, you can lose the leadership at any moment, you can fail, really helps you then lead not with authority, but actually with, bridging and bringing people together and motivating people with vision and listening and feeling the group.
Okay.
And that gives you a good balance as a leader.
But would you say that, this foundation of formal academics, of education, is something that is absolutely needed to become a successful entrepreneur?
Well, it helps because as an entrepreneur, you're basically, at the beginning, you're kind of a product leader, but really as you progress quickly, you raise money. Right, you look at your financials. You're doing marketing. You're doing leadership, management. All the facets of business are being called on. And if you haven't learned any of the theories, that's very difficult. So you've seen really great CEOs coming from software engineering, right? But they learn from their peers. They learn from their functional leaders. They get coaches. But a foundation of knowledge from a really formal education can really help. It's not necessary, but it really helps. And that's why executive MBAs are becoming more and more popular for those leaders, because there are some skills that are hard skills that you need to learn that are helpful in those positions where you need to make decisions in complex situation with limited data.
Of course. But is there something that initially drew you to go to Silicon Valley, or was it just kind of like everybody's doing it, I'm going to go there as well?
Well, it was innovation and but also culture, like San Francisco itself when I went to visit, and
You've enjoyed
how
it
was fun, and the cosmopolitan area, and the fact that there was bankers and innovators and hippies and artists all in this little place, and that was very attractive. That's what attracted me. But why I stayed was again for that, but for innovation, really participating in changing the world.
Right. And it's not about money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I see. Now, you worked alongside here. I have some renowned thought leaders, from Clayton Christensen to Kim Clark. So I just wanted to ask you, how have these relationships really influenced your career, your perspective on business, etc.?
Yeah, when you work with world-class thinkers, it really sharpens your thinking. It really inspires you. And we learn a lot from others, or at least I do, but I know everybody does, right? When we see a tennis player playing very well, our tennis game improves. Like the next day, it's incredible.
What tennis player do you follow? Do you follow a tennis player?
Yeah.
Huge Djokovic fan.
For me,
it
was always McEnroe is my favorite. But now Alcaraz is amazing. I loved playing him because he's also very creative, and I like that. It's not boring. It's not like Lendl, and now I see some that are rising that I like a little less. But anyway.
Anyways, back to the topic.
But like, when you work with these amazing thought leaders and amazing leaders, you really learn from them a lot by being close to them and how they're thinking, how they're exposing and offering their thinking, how they're managing really complex problems, but also inspiring with confidence and really being confident in our thoughts and our ideas. Bringing people along is a human issue, right? It's very much emotional, and so these people have really I think inspired me in that way, but also taught me a way. And people influence you, and the more you work with the diversity of people, the more you find a style that works for you also.
Of course, because at the end of the day, there are different leadership styles, and we need to find the one that we're best at, right? Yeah. So tell me now a little bit about Startup Genome, obviously. If you could explain in short, what is the company about?
So Startup Genome is an organization and a movement that we started really to help the rest of the world catch up and really develop thriving startup ecosystem innovation and entrepreneurial innovation ecosystems. And when we were coming from Silicon Valley and seeing how it works, but seeing also how it creates so much value and other places were falling behind. After the last exit we had, we decided let's spin off and give back and help governments help us entrepreneurs in a better way, because we're, from our standpoint, where policies and structures were really well done in the US and supporting us, but also then the government was leaving us alone was really good. And looking at other cities and countries, seeing that governments wanted to help, but often they made policies that didn't make sense, that could hurt, that could hinder, and we decided let's plunge in and let's look at what policies actually works, and so that we can teach that, and building a knowledge network between cities, between countries that are working on these policies, on helping entrepreneurs, seeing what works and bringing it elsewhere and adopting it to the culture as we go. So Startup Genome is really this movement that started from research and now is really interaction with advisory in those countries. We work in 40 countries all over the world right now.
Amazing. But would you say, this region here, the policies are friendly for new startups to come in, for innovation to come through? I would say that it's great. I mean, we have a Ministry of AI here, which is something that you don't find anywhere else in the world, right?
Yeah, the government has ambition, as a vision, sees that this is really important to create an engine of growth that is entrepreneurial innovation, and I've been helping and experimenting and rapidly developing tools and supports in a private community that can support the young entrepreneurs, and it's happening very fast, and it's a place in the world where it's bubbling.
Of course.
The most.
Which sector would you say is the most popular that you see?
Here?
Yeah.
There's a variety, because in every city, even if the corporate fabric is a certain way, young entrepreneurs, they do what they want. And they do all kind of things, right? But of course, there's a lot of real estate, so you would think there's a lot of prop tech, and there's a good amount. There's a lot of financial institutions, a good amount of fintech. There's energy. But there's not that much, energy solution, clean tech. But there's a really wide variety here of innovation, and that's really good, because there's people from all over the world coming here, in and out. But there's also, children of expats who are growing, and there's a global vision of the world, and that makes it an incredible place to innovate.
Would you say, though, there's any challenges that you think might be, let's say, a boundary in the near future here in the region?
Well, so I think the more an ecosystem is mature, the more it has all the pillars figured out, right? Good community and good center of gravity and good funding and good programs to support them and good talent, the better it is. And definitely right now, not all of those pillars are mature and well made. I think one of the biggest issue in Dubai is the fragmentation of the ecosystem with the free zones, right? Way too many free zones. And when it happens naturally, as opposed to guided by policy, it's very concentrated. Like in San Francisco, AI is within two square kilometers.
Oh, wow.
All of the best companies in AI in the valley, they're there in the Mission District. It happens naturally because people want to be next to each other, learn from each other, build on each other. And this free zone artificial structure, which was really also based on campuses and real estate, really hurt. And now is how do you bring it together where there's one ecosystem, people converge, all the mentors, all the VCs, the angels, the founders and CEOs and the mentors have done it before, and the talent being all in one place and creating a lot of collisions and helping each other, a sense of community. It's difficult to recreate when it started being fragmented.
Right.
So I think by concentration, by creating a center of gravity, Dubai, for instance, will see a much better success.
It will be more efficient.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure they will reach it.
Yeah,
one
but
day.
There's a lot of work and great people working to create the right support.
Manage all of that.
There's a lot of good funding already, and there's a lot of good talent. So it's coming together, and Dubai is definitely a good city in terms of innovation, right? The best in the region, and continuing to grow with the support of the government.
Right, but since you are an angel investor, what would you say are kind of the main qualities that you look for in the startups when deciding where you should invest?
The most important quality is ambition, right? Someone who wants to do something big and is determined and will not give up easily, because it's very hard. And also it's very easy when it's very hard to give up and say, I'll exit at $50 million, at $100 million, and I'll haven't made money, or I'll keep my business where it is, I'll live well, I'm making enough money. And what you want is an entrepreneur who says, no, it's not big enough. It's not. I want to go bigger. I want to have a bigger impact. I want to continue. I'm not afraid. So ambition is number one. Of course, the quality of the innovation, and of course the team, and of course having some traction. All of that is important, but also being humble from the founder, because you need to learn from others. You need to know that I don't know much.
You're not the smartest person in the room.
You're not the smartest person, and you don't have that much experience. And always keep one thing that always helps me and helps others when I say it is, if you think you know a lot, think about yourself in 10 years and whether in 10 years you'll know more than right now. Look back at how much you knew 5 years ago, and that keeps us humble. And the fact is, you have to manage across many functions, many different things, and there's always someone better than you at these other things.
Of course.
And so you're building a team, and you're staying humble and make sure you defer to others when they're the expert.
I see. But for example, if I put a startup in front of you and they pitch, how long will it take you to be persuaded? Let's put it that way. Do you immediately understand all of these characteristics, or it takes some time and you're analyzing it for a couple of weeks? How does it usually work?
Well, I think investors invest with their gut. And so energy and emotion really is important. So when I coach other CEOs to pitch, this is really like the 5 minutes, having a high rhythm, having a high energy, not stopping, not describing, just giving all the points that are exciting to the investor at the beginning to try to accelerate their heartbeat. This is a winner, right?
Okay.
But as an investor, you need to keep that in check. And stay objective, and ask questions in terms of ambition, right? Test it, and also really think back and ask other people, what do they think about this innovation? Those people who are in the domain, those corporations that might be customers. So having a network around you as an investor is very important, so that you can not just invest on emotion, right, and energy and ambition, but also is it a sound business? Is it high potential or not?
Okay, interesting. Now, you worked with governments, with agencies, as you said, in over 50 different countries. So I wanted to ask you, how do the challenges, let's say, of developing the startup ecosystem differ from one region to the other? I'm sure you've seen, many different scenarios in many different parts of the world. So if you could kind of summarize which regions are, let's say, positive and negative for what?
Well, a startup ecosystem develop at the city level. So it's really, and there's been a lot of thinking looking from the outside that the U.S. has less stigma around failures and all that, and it's not true. It's really a city thing, right? Even though in Silicon Valley the stigma of failure is gone because there's been
So
series
many.
of failures and successes by
Yeah.
people, and we know it's about learning, and doing several startups is really good. And in cities in the U.S., like smaller cities, I'm not going to name any, but the stigma of failure is real, like everywhere else in the world. So when you see our ranking, that tells you a little bit. Are the cities successful at creating innovation? Do they have the right culture? Because culture is very important. Culture of the startup ecosystem, and is the founders and their ambition, but it's also the ambition and the mindset of the investors and the supporters, the programs and all that around them. So there's hotspot of innovation everywhere in the world, right?
All right.
Nigeria is booming right now, incredible hotspot, right? Dubai is going great, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi. There's of course Tel Aviv, there's Singapore, there's London, and we see cities rising. Miami, we see Melbourne, big winner in the last few years. Zurich came out of nowhere, started growing rapidly in entrepreneur innovation. So it can happen everywhere. And it develops in similar ways.
What would you say are the key ingredients, though, to really create a startup ecosystem that thrives?
There's different archetypes of what are the strengths of the ecosystem. Like a Berlin developed in very different ways, right? Whereas it was a community of artists and creative thinkers that started creating and innovating, and then invited that attracted programs, that attracted investors, and it kept growing like that with not that much government supports, if at all. Whereas other cities were created through policies. But the key pillars is always having a community and center of gravity. So if the government that wants to help, it's about supporting the development of those pillars from 0 to 1, so that the private communities can build it. So how do you create a community of investors that know how to invest in startups? It's so difficult.
Of course.
How do you create talent that are creative thinkers that want to work in startup, which is really broad jobs, not a specialized software engineers in a bank that's really narrow, right? And with a lot of uncertainty and working in teams and flat organization. And how do you accumulate that experience of working in startup? Completely different. And then how do you have supporters who actually know how to help startups, how to help them do the right thing at the right time, how to build experimentations, how to fail at low price really rapidly. All of these things are things that the government can help seed, can help start with some money, some initiatives, and let the private and scale.
Right. Are there any specific policies, in your opinion, that governments should implement more?
There's not really,
Right.
simple policy, but what governments usually focus on is funding,
Okay.
and funding really doesn't work by itself, and that's usually it's a waste of money. Too much funding and not enough spending on building community and building the other pillars of support programs and talent, and so that's usually the mistake.
Right.
Like 50%, 75% of the money on funding, and very little money on building community, not enough money on space. And that's usually the big mistake, because usually what is cheaper, but you need to do first, is actually building community, giving them space, giving them a place to converge and learn from each other, and learn with investors and other people around them.
I see. But looking at it from a perspective of someone, let's say, I left high school a decade ago, right? And I feel like a lot of times, especially in Europe, you don't have that modernized, let's say, education. Whereas, for example, do we study entrepreneurship in school? Do we study, how to become more innovative, how to use our knowledge plus be street smart to create something new in the world? That is something that at least a decade ago was missing in schools. We have a lot of traditional educational systems that, in my opinion, could be modernized a bit. And then that could be that foundation, that, of course, in university now we can study entrepreneurship. And who knows in 10 years' time how many more bachelors we're going to have. But I think education is also a very big part of it. And actually training, teenagers onwards how to become entrepreneurs, I think that could definitely place a seed in and make it a better offer, in 10, 20 years where we have 10 times more ideas because kids were trained from a young age to have that drive.
Yeah, definitely the education system sometimes doesn't support the right aptitudes that leads to entrepreneurship, to creativity. So, really nurturing critical thinking.
Exactly.
Not learning by heart, not sitting on a chair and being calm and repeating
Instead,
stuff.
create a project, create an initiative. And that's only something that at least I got to do in uni, in high school and middle school, it wasn't there. Elementary school it was, but it's just because
exactly.
we
There's
cannot
a lot
sit
of
down.
exactly.
But this is why people say, ask yourself, who do you want to be when you're 7, when you're 8 years old, and follow that dream when you're 18 and 19, because that was that initial drive that you were born with, that wasn't kind of brainwashed, let's say, throughout media, throughout your life, throughout your teenagehood. So, yeah, I feel like that there's a big shout out to schools and educational systems to kind of go back and listen to the ideas that the kids had when they were back in elementary,
Yeah, there's a lot of new schools that actually, push that forward, but it's too rare still. Schools that really push on focus on creative thinking, right? Problem solving, doing math problems through projects, through real projects, right? You're taking 150 people to the beach. You have these many buses. How many do you take, right? Instead of saying, okay, it's 150 divided by 7, right? Things like that. But as you continue, it's really about technical skills also. And entrepreneurial courses don't create that much entrepreneurs, but great technical skills create entrepreneurs because they become inventors, become thinkers of new solutions,
because
and that's
as you
really
said,
what pushes it.
You become a product manager first, right? When you create something, and you need to know your product and the technical aspects of the product by heart.
Yeah,
so
and if you have good technical skills, it helps you so much at the beginning to be able to be the person that builds the product, and you don't need to pay someone to do it for you,
right?
Which is very difficult to do. And understanding, having at least one technical founder, and maybe someone who has soft skills who can actually be the person who does the marketing, the sales, right, the speaking. So having this ambidextrous team is very important.
All right. Now tell me, what advice would you give to startups that would like to scale from, $50 million to $100 million to $1 billion? What would be your main piece of advice?
Yeah, so you want to learn from others, right? So you want to build a network of people, of investors, of experts in your industry, expert in the technical skills that you have. And that this network around you gives you everything you need, right? It gives you money, or they give you introductions to investors, they give you introductions to employees, they give you introductions to customers, they help you with scaling skills that you don't have. And so scaling is really a network problem, especially in ecosystem that don't have a lot of scaling skills in their community, or also at market access, global market access. And if you want to build a globally successful product, you need to start talking to customers and experts really rapidly at the beginning when you code your product, so that you know that I'm coding something that's not only for local corporations or local consumers, but actually will work elsewhere. And so this is, again, a network problem. And when you look at scaling skills, executives who've built $1 billion business, there's not that many here, right? There's a few, and they're really busy, and they probably they're either still in the business or they became angel investor, or they become VC investors, or they started again. So, but in the US, in New York, and San Francisco, in London, right, in Singapore, there's people who've scaled business and are ready to give back. And the community of San Francisco, of Silicon Valley, is one where you've received mentorship. People have helped you for free, and you want to help. When you make it, you want to give back. And you don't want to give back to people just in Silicon Valley. When we ask people to give back to mentor companies here in Tokyo, in Seoul, people say yes very easily. They want to give back to the world, to others who are like them, who are trying to change the world and creating really interesting innovation.
Right.
And so you need to reach out and build this network, this global network.
But what would you say are kind of the biggest mistakes that founders make? Because from the answers that at least I receive from, all of the founders and investors that I've met, is that when you do create your product, you shouldn't be the one that, I like this product, therefore this is a gap that I wanted to solve for myself, and this is where the motivation came from. It's so important to do the market research and actually think, will the customers, will my region, will the world accept this, as something useful.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a common mistake, or did you find that there's others as well?
That's the biggest mistake, and we call it premature scaling. And
Okay.
it's really...
There's a word for it, guys.
Yeah.
I missed that. Okay.
And there's a big
Premature
research on
scaling.
our website at startupgenome.com. If you look for the premature scaling report, you'll see. And we evaluated that 70% of startups that failed because of that concept. And it's
Okay.
not necessarily about scaling, but it's about doing the next step right now before really finishing what you have to do, which means at the beginning you should talk to a lot of customers and understand, is the problem we're working on, is it top of mind? Is it really important? Is my solution interesting to them? Is my idea really bad or pretty good? And usually your first idea is not the best.
Right.
And you need to listen to customers. So at the beginning you should talk to at least 30, 100 customers before you start coding. And you should do experiments, right? Cheap experiments. But often you start coding right away. You're convinced you have a good idea. And then you hit the market. You've wasted a lot of time. It's not really working,
money, yeah.
right? Or you have the product. You have a few customers that are interested. And you're like, let's hire salespeople. Well, it's too early, right? You don't know how to really target the best customers at the right cost and how to start scaling. It's too early to hire a salesperson. You're supposed to be the chief sales officer. So again, it's always doing the next step
And sometimes
really too fast before really understanding whether it's
Right.
working and it's ready for the next phase.
And I feel like sometimes they also don't check what their neighbors are doing, and their neighbors might be doing the same thing. It's about also checking, okay, what's my entire competition in the entire region, in the entire world, and learn from them as well at the end of
Yeah.
the day,
That's one of the reasons Silicon Valley is successful, is because
They
in
come
Silicon
together,
Valley,
right?
when you have an idea and you talk to people in the space, people know what's going on in Singapore, what's going on in Shanghai, what's going on all over the world, and can tell you, oh yeah, that's happened before and that's failed. So now you can learn from the mistake. And the
tweak it.
failures of startups is not written anywhere. It's in people's mind. So again, the network is what gives you that knowledge. Or someone else has done your idea and you need to go a little further, right? They're already 3-4 years ahead. It's too late for you to copy. So, okay, what can I do that goes one step further, that is a new, really fresh innovation that can build on that?
Right. Now, the entire theme this year in GITEX is AI. I just wanted to touch a bit upon that. Would you say that the involvement of AI now in the startup creation is something that really escalated kind of the potential that these ideas might have? Would you say that AI, on the other hand side, might be more challenging for entrepreneurs in the sense because they have something else doing it for them and they're not necessarily putting in the effort and don't have that ambition? Would you say that AI play, a positive or a negative part in today's, let's say, startup landscape?
Well, right now, this is such an important tool that allows you to do a lot more faster, create more impact, quicker, at lower cost. And what you find in entrepreneurs is that everybody's using AI already.
Okay.
And it's accelerating the startup ecosystem in an amazing way. It's increasing the impact, but everybody knows already. It's like when I was leading a panel on AI in San Francisco a few months ago, and some of our portfolio companies that we had on the panel, and I thought, it's not an AI company. They're probably not using it that much, and they all had 2 or 3 use cases, and they were already using it. There's another 2 that they're working on, and it's amazing, and it's changing everything.
Okay, so it's definitely there's a support system.
Yeah, it's the most important tool that we've had, new tools that we've had for decades.
Of course. It's kind of like the invention of the internet, It's
it's kind of the invention of the computer.
Or
and
the computer.
There was the computer, now there's this thinking computer, and the thinking computer's potential is infinite. And the computer was kind of like that, right? It's been growing now for 75 years, and the AI is going to be like that also, decades. And that's why, it's important to invest right now and invest aggressively.
Right. I mean, I got to experience that excitement that my grandparents experienced when they saw the first computer. So yeah, I'm happy about it and happy the way that it helps us these days. Now tell me, going back to Startup Genome, I wanted to ask you, since you guys did expand in the MENA region recently, if you could tell me a little bit about that. You've told me you've already had at the headquarters in Abu Dhabi, right? Will you be expanding here in Dubai as well? What's in your plans in the near future?
Yeah, we're very engaged in the region with several countries and planning to continue to grow here because this is where innovation is bubbling and startup ecosystems are bubbling with leadership in country that have that are very intelligent, very smart, very methodical, very aligned, from top to bottom, ambitious, a little impatient, with lots of capital. So there's a lot to do. Startup ecosystem are developing at an amazing pace. So one of my employees are actually one of my leader of the MENA region, Samantha Evans, is saying, I arrived in Silicon Valley too late. And now I want to go to the MENA region because this is the beginning of a big development, and I'm going to be there at the right time, and I'm committing to this.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And that's really what we're thinking at Startup Genome. This is where the growth is starting, is accelerating, and it's going to grow for decades.
Did you already see some startups that you could potentially take on board here?
Yeah, we're already working with startups, and there's amazing innovation, and there's amazing innovation that is global stage, and we're there to really facilitate that, help them go to the global stage by bringing our global network to it.
Right, since our interview is coming to an end, I just wanted to ask you one more question, which I usually ask my guests at the end of the podcast, and that is, if I were to give you a time machine and you can go all the way back in time, to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell that younger version?
I would say, connect with people, see what you're passionate about, because it's really about that. Like, if anything you pick it with your heart, and then, you never feel like you're working. You always feel like you're doing something that is interesting to you, that you have fun doing, that you want to be in, you want to spend more time doing, and connect with other people who have that same energy around this topic. And for me, when I started Startup Genome, the new Startup Genome is something that I've never enjoyed my work more than that. And that's really what, as a young person, you need to think about. Where do I want to go? I really like cars. And I should have worked in the automotive industry. That would have been a great place for me because I would have enjoyed it so much. But instead, I was more opportunistic and like seeing, where can I get a good job? Now pick with your heart a little bit more.
All right. Because at the end of the day, we spend, 70% of our life working.
A little bit less than that, but yeah.
At least of my week.
Hopefully.
Hopefully less. But
of the waking time, it's a big part.
Yeah.
You might as well enjoy it.
I think I meant to say like 70% of my week or my day it's working.
Yeah.
So
people often look at many companies and find the best job, but find the companies that actually do something that you like, that calls you.
And if you don't like anything, create something on your own at the end of the day, and have that ambition that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Well, JF, we have a few audience questions that came through across our LinkedIn and Instagram, so I'm going to ask you that now. Question number 1 is from Samantha. She's a startup founder here. Hi, JF. How do you recommend we engage with our local ecosystems to maximize support and growth opportunities? Thanks a lot.
Well, there's a lot of initiatives here in every sector. There's programs, there's support, there's investors, there's incentives. And so, look around, talk to a lot of people in the domain where you want to do business, connect with the people who are doing it, other founders and organizations that do it, so that you can find that support. There's so much support here for entrepreneurs. Right. So make sure you tap into it.
Right. Well, Sam, hopefully that answered your question. Now, question number 2 is from Omar. I'm just starting out as an entrepreneur. What advice would you give to someone like me who's looking to build a scalable company?
Well, at the very beginning, what you want to do is talk about your ideas to people in the domain. See if is it a good idea. Start talking to potential customers. And ask them about their problems. What are their top of mind problems? Is your solution going after one of them? And talk about your solution. Is it something interesting to them? But also then think about who's going to be your co-founder. Right? Having 2 or 3 or 4 co-founders really increases your chance of scaling up. If you're a technical skill person, then make sure you get a business person, someone with soft skills around you, and vice versa. And that's very important. So look for that also. Someone else who's passionate about an idea who can be your partner in this amazing journey.
Right. That's a great way to look at it. Thanks for the advice. Hopefully that's enough for you, Omar, to kick off your idea. So, a question from Layla, founder in the MENA region. What specific advantages do startups here have? And she talks about the MENA region, I'm guessing, not just Dubai. How can we leverage our ecosystems to scale more quickly?
Well, the specific advantages is there's a lot of government support, and that's really helpful. So again, look for what support you can get. There's a lot of people ready to help. There's a lot of stimulus and incentives to help you, and there's a lot of programs. There's a lot of space that where you can meet other entrepreneurs and get that support. There's a lot of capital. That's an advantage. That's really an advantage. But to scale, it's really build a network, leverage a network, get out, go to Silicon Valley, London, New York, meet people. Entrepreneurs is where you get the most help. Make friends, because it's about informal relationships.
Right.
And so here you have people from all over the world, and it's easy to travel and know people that will receive you in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley, in London. Leverage that network, that informal network also.
Right. It's all about connections at the end of the day. And I think also the fact that we have so many great conferences here and events, such as, GITEX. There's also like Seamless and a lot of other ones coming up in Saudi. So I think another, I guess, a piece of advice could be to travel to these events and conferences. And
meet. Other events where people from all over the world come. But what you want to leave with is people that care about you, and you care about. It's about informal relationships where you're going to have friends in London, Silicon Valley, other locations that are interested like you, are entrepreneurs, first of all. And you can call upon and say, hey, I'm doing this innovation. Have you heard of others like me? Do you know anybody who could help me on this? Do you know any investors that might be interested? Customers, right? These are between entrepreneurs, we help each other a lot. We take risks, even with our relationships. Other people don't do that much. The investors, the experts, right? They're guarded a little bit. They're like, okay, I have 20 years relationship with this person. Will I look bad if I introduce this young entrepreneur to him or her? But between entrepreneurs, we know how hard it is, and we're much more ready to help, to make the right introduction, and to share our knowledge. And so leave GITEX with friends, entrepreneurs from other cities that you can continue to be on the journey on with, and offer to help first. How can I help you?
Right. You never know. And at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is a very lonely journey, so why not find other lonely people? And as you said, group up together. Anyways, JF, I think our interview is coming to an end and the interrogation is done. You can go and have a nice nap. But thank you so much for coming over today. Honestly, it was a pleasure meeting you. A lot of advice, so I'm very much promoting this podcast to all the fellow founders, co-founders, aspiring entrepreneurs, because honestly, you can hear some great tips here on where you could be next and how to be there, right? With all of the support, obviously, that we get here in the region. Thanks so much for coming over to Paradigm, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. It was so great.
Thanks. And that wraps up today's episode of Paradigm. A huge thank you to JF for sharing his wealth of knowledge with us today on building successful ecosystems, helping us understand what it really takes to scale startups to, let's say, a cool unicorn status. So like, share, and comment your thoughts on this episode. And most importantly, stay tuned to Entrepreneur TV Middle East for more inspiring stories. Until then, you know the drill. Keep innovating, keep evolving, and keep reshaping the future. With you was Mina Vucic.